Continual improvement. Our first general management practice is continual improvement. And for the exam, this is the one you need to know in depth from this section. For this one, you need to be able to explain continual improvement, what its purpose is, and how it applies throughout the value chain. So when we talk about continual improvement, what exactly is its purpose? Well, the purpose of the continual improvement practice is to align the organization's practices and services with changing business needs through the ongoing identification and improvement of services, service components, practices, or any other element involved in the efficient and effective management of products and services. Basically, how do we make things work better? That's what continual improvement is all about. Now, when we think about continual improvement, there's a couple of key things that it focuses on. First, we want to encourage continual improvement across the organization. We always want to be aiming for something bigger, better, faster, cheaper, or more efficient. The second key function of continual improvement is to secure time and budget for continual improvement. It's really easy in an organization to keep working on the same things day in and day out and not think about how to improve. You want to make sure you're securing that time and budget so we can continue to work on improving our processes. Next, we want to think about identifying and logging improvement opportunities. Anytime you're working on something, you might have an idea and say, this would be better if we did X thing. At that point, we want to log that down, identify it, and that way, eventually, we might be able to get back to it and cause that improvement to happen. Another thing we want to think about is how we assess and prioritize our improvement opportunities. You may have 100 great ideas, but which one should we work on first? That's part of continual improvement. We also want to think about how we're going to make a business case for those improvement actions. At some point, you need to get budget for your improvement, right? So you're going to have to think about how we're going to be able to do that and make the case for it up to your senior leadership or your senior management. Maybe you're going to say something like, hey boss, I think we should do this improvement action. It's going to take us 20 hours right now to build it, but it's going to save us 10 hours a week. So in just 2 weeks, we're going to make up that time. It's a great idea. That would be an example of making your business case. Next, we want to think about how we're going to plan and implement those improvements, and we want to figure out how we're going to measure and evaluate the improvements and the results of those improvements. Again, we've talked a lot about this when we talked about the continual improvement model in the last section of the course. This is just the formal practice that is going to work that model. And we also want to make sure we're coordinating our improvement activities across the organization. Remember, we want to think holistically and act widely across the organization for the best improvements. Now, when we're working with continual improvement, there's a lot of different tools that we can put into our toolbox. These are things like methods and models and techniques. This is things like lean methods where we're trying to reduce waste, multi-phase projects where we're trying to organize the way we're going to do things and get incremental improvements. We might do maturity assessments to figure out how mature our organization is and are we operating at peak efficiency. We might be using development ops so that we can develop things quicker and faster and get them into market. We might use something like a balanced scorecard where we look at the improvement and we look at it through the lens of those 4 different dimensions of service management. We also might be using agile improvements and techniques. We might be trying to get some quick wins, or we might even do a SWOT analysis. And a SWOT analysis is something that they teach in business school. It's where you list out the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats, and then you figure out how that applies to your given initiative. Now, all of this is great, and there's one more technique or tool that you should be using, and it's called a Continual Improvement Register. Now, a Continual Improvement Register, or CIR, is a database or a structured document that we use to track and manage all of the improvement ideas from the identification through final action. So as I said before, you might be sitting there and you come up with a great idea. Well, if you just think about it and nothing gets done, we're never going to improve. So instead, you should submit that idea into the CIR, the Continual Improvement Register. From there, we'll log it in there, and eventually we're going to figure out whether or not we're going to work on that improvement idea, and if that improvement has a low, medium, or high impact, and what the resolution is. Did we decide to do it, or did we not decide to do it? And if we decide to do it, when are we going to decide to do it, and how are we going to plan for it? So that's the whole idea. Here's an example of a CIR. Here you can see that there are 3 different things that are listed, and the impact for each one, medium, medium, and high. And then the last column there would be where we said what we're going to do with it. Yes, we're going to do this initiative and we're going to start it in Q1 of next year. Whatever the plan is, we want to make sure we're capturing it. The last thing I want to talk about in continual improvement is how it's operated when you talk about continual improvement with the relationships involved. We like to put this in as a pyramid. So if we start at the bottom and we start thinking about our partners and suppliers, how can we improve our relationships with partners and suppliers? Well, We can do that by going through and looking at our contracts and including how we're going to measure, report, and improve those processes. Then we look inside our entire organization, which is the next large audience that we have. And from there, we want to try to get active participation in continual improvement initiatives as a core part of everyone's job. When it comes down to it, continual improvement isn't the job of the continual improvement manager. It's the job of everyone in the organization. And then we have the continual improvement team led by the continual improvement manager. Their job is to lead the efforts and advocate for the practice across the entire organization. They're the ones trying to get everyone else in the organization to join in the fight and help us improve. And then all the way at the top of the pyramid, we have those few leaders at the top. And those are going to be the ones who are going to try to embed continual improvement into the way that people think and work by providing that proper vision. And so this really does hark back to that continual improvement model we talked about. If we look at this pyramid and we do it from the top to the bottom instead, we start seeing the leaders who come up with the vision, right? Which is the beginning of our continual improvement model. Then we have our continual improvement team. And that team is the ones who are going to be doing the baseline assessments of where we are and determining where we want to be. They're also going to help develop the plans. But then when we want to take action, we have to do that with everyone in the organization, including our partners and suppliers outside the organization. And then we're going to reassess where we are and then figure out how do we keep this momentum going and do it all again. You can see how this all ties in together time and time again. Now, the last thing I want to talk about here in continual improvement is how it integrates with the different value chain activities. So if we look at how continual improvement is going to work inside plan, the continual improvement practice is applied to all planning activities. We're going to look at the methods and techniques to make sure that they're all relevant for the organization's current objective and the context in which we're operating. When we start looking at this from the improve perspective, the continual improvement practice is key to this value chain activity. It's all about improvement. It structures our resources and our activities to enable that improvement at all levels of the organization and across the service value system. Now, as we look at the rest of the service value chain, and we look at the value chain activities of engage, design and transition, obtain and build, and deliver and support, each of these value chain activities are subject to continual improvement because we're always trying to improve our practices, our activities, and our processes. And the continual improvement practice itself is applied to all of these. As you can see, the continual improvement practice is inside everything we do inside IDLE 4. We're always trying to continue to improve. If we go back and look at the service value chain again, you see that improve touches all of those inner cubes and the engage process with that purple line. That's because it impacts every single one of them. That's the key here. Continual improvement is the key to our success in IDLE 4 because we never want to stop improving.